SABC, host broadcaster of the G20 South Africa 2025.
And now, the Minister of International Relations and Cooperation, Ronald Lamola, says that South Africa is on track to host the world's leaders for the G20 Leaders Summit, which takes place this weekend. And it is, of course, the first time that an African country is hosting one of the world's most influential economic forums. The G20 Summit, a platform for world leaders to address pressing global issues, and South Africa has used its presidency of the G20 to promote Africa's development and to shape a more equitable world order, or at least try to. So to help us discuss how the continent can and has leveraged this position within the G20 to advance key development priorities, we're joined by the South African Institute of International Affairs Chief Executive, Elizabeth Sidiropoulos. Elizabeth, thank you so much for your time, and thanks so much for your patience with us this morning. Appreciate it.
Good morning, Sakina.
So, Elizabeth, first and foremost, let's just start here. I was just reading through a few of the international publications and just looking at how they are reporting on this matter. And one of the articles that I read says that this G20 has been overshadowed by the absence of Trump and his administration. Well, has it, in your view?
Well, certainly, one can say that this has dominated a lot of the discussions that that the G20 has received. But I think a lot of really good work has gone into the process over the course of the year. I think there has been really good cooperation among the other members of the G20 on driving and helping to drive South Africa's agenda. And I think irrespective of whether we get a declaration at the end of the day or simply a chair's summary this weekend, I think there have been significant issues that South Africa has put on the agenda and that can be driven forward in subsequent years. We must remember that the G20 is a process, that in fact, even a lot of the achievements of the G20, for example, in multilateral development bank finance, were started 3 or 4 years ago during the Italian presidency. And so each G20 builds on previous ones. And I think South Africa has driven forward some of the issues that have been on the agenda in prior years. It certainly has built on the issues that the Indonesian, Indian, and Brazilian presidency put on the table during their chairmanship, really focusing on making development a centerpiece of the discussions on the G20. And South Africa has also put additional issues on the agenda, or reprioritized issues that were there but may have not received the same kind of focus. So, and that's been really looking at what is important for Africa. So just energy transitions, the issue of debt sustainability, the issue of critical minerals and industrialization, and then very, very importantly, inequality, and the report by the independent experts panel on inequality, which was presented to the president a couple of weeks ago.
And speaking of Africa, and I want to come back to those priorities, but as the African continent...
Sakina, I can't hear you.
Well, my apologies there, Elizabeth. I'm hoping you can hear me now. If you could just give me an indication back there with you. So I was going to ask you about Africa and, of course, Africa's voice in this G20. So this is the first time that this very influential gathering is taking place on the African continent, and South Africa being president. But with that, with the presence now of the African Union as another permanent member of the G20, how is Africa's voice changing in this platform?
So previously, the African Union had observer status, and so it would attend some of the meetings, but wasn't a full member. This year, and of course last year, this has changed, and I think the AU has also ramped up its technical know-how in order to participate, and its capacity in order to participate in all of the very many meetings that have been held during the course of the year. I think it's provided support to South Africa's positions. It's not the only country that has, not the only member that has provided support to South Africa's agenda. But I think also sitting in on some of the discussions, it's really been interesting to see how on many of the issues, particularly when we're doing text negotiations, that the AU and South Africa are on the same page when it comes to Africa's developmental priorities and concerns. Going forward, of course, I think it's about ramping that capacity up. It's about ensuring that it's not just the African Union Commission and the rotating presidency of the AU that is involved and participates in the conversations, but that we actually spread the engagement and the appreciation and understanding of the importance of the G20 as a platform across the continent.
And the beneficiation of those critical minerals, Elizabeth, that is particularly important.
I've lost you again, Sakina.
Our apologies. You know what, Elizabeth?
You're back.
We certainly will catch up again with you, Elizabeth. Let's park it there for the time being. Elizabeth Sidiropoulos, South African Institute of International Affairs Chief Executive, speaking about Africa's growing influence in the G20 Summit. And we'll try and catch up with her again over this weekend.
SABC, host broadcaster of the G20 South Africa 2025.